San Francisco 49ers George Kittle talking about Deebo Samuel and potentially replacing the wide back. The wide receiver has been with the 49ers since he was drafted. I think it was back in 2019. It's crazy how long and how fast time flies. But talked about basically how you can't really replace Deebo. And although I do agree, and you're going to hear his rationale behind it, I do think it actually is a welcome change. And I think that the 49ers could actually be better off kind of moving into this new era of the offense. But take a listen to George as he kind of explains what you're losing with Deebo Samuel as we all brace for him to either be released or traded. Take a listen right here.
Obviously, I know we all know that Deebo requested a trade, assuming that he lands somewhere else this offseason that leave Ayuk, Jennings, and Pearsall as the three primary wideouts on the roster. So what kind of expectations do you have for them if they do have to fill that vacant Deebo role?
Well, one, I don't think you can't really replace Deebo. I think he's one of the most unique players in the NFL because of what he can do. Well, one, he's the best yak guy. Besides myself, I will hype myself up. I'm pretty good at that too. But he's so good at when he gets the ball in his hands. And the fact that you can line him up in the slot out wide in the backfield and do all the fun stuff with him, and he breaks tackles, he runs like a running back, and he has the burst, he has the speed, he has the agility to get away from guys too. Like, he's just such a unique player. So I don't think you can really replace him. Now we're just gonna have to build our offense a little bit differently because we don't have that available to us. But Deebo's a hell of a football player. I've loved being his teammate. I've loved sharing the field with him. I love going to war with him. If that is what happens and he is traded, I'll be very sad. But at the same time, I'm always happy for guys to get opportunities, and that's all you can ask for in the NFL. But yes, Deebo is one of my guys, and I always love playing with him. For the three other guys who are still currently on the roster, whether it's Jawan, Ayuk, who's coming back from ACL, Ricky Pearsall, we have Trent Taylor in the slot, we have Jay Cowan in the slot, we still have Chris Conley. So yes, when you remove Deebo from the equation, it's kind of like, all right, who's going to step up? Because Ayuk's not going to, probably, I would assume he's not going to play week one. I don't really know. That would be awesome if he did. You got it, yeah. Ayuk, I believe in you. But Jawan Jennings has proved that he can play like a number one wide receiver. He had a game with 3 touchdowns, 170 yards. Like, he can go out there and do it. Just got a game plan for him, give him some opportunities. Ricky Pearsall had a game at the end of the year last year against the Lions where I think he had 140, 150 yards and a touchdown. So, we have guys that can produce. And then, one thing that we missed all of last year that would help the wide receivers is, hey, Christian McCaffrey will probably be back. And while, he wasn't there for a lot of the year and, he wasn't on all the highlight reels and all that stuff, he'll be back. And I'm assuming he's going to come back kind of angry because he missed last year, most of it. So I think we're going to get the best version of Christian McCaffrey. When you have a guy like Christian in the backfield who can run all the routes and still great in the run game, it opens everything up for our wide receivers. It opens everything up for me too. And so when that combination and with Coach Shanahan scheming it up, I think it's going to be a great recipe for success.
So just like George Kittle talked about, yeah, you can't replace Deebo Samuel because he's a very unique player, just as he described. And the thing with Deebo is he's a gadget guy, right? Just get him the ball. Doesn't matter how. He's not going to be, high-end route runner, deep downfield and doing all those types of things. He's a get the ball in his hands, just let him turn into a bowling ball and just run through everyone. So the offense with him was predicated on just coming up with creative ways to get the ball in his hand. But I think with what we saw in that Rams game, especially, it was almost to the point where it felt like they were trying to do whatever they could to get the ball into Deebo's hands. And it was actually disrupting the rhythm of the offense. And it felt like when Deebo was off on the side, it felt like the offense started to run because they weren't so heavily focused on developing these plays just to get Deebo the ball. So as I've discussed, Deebo's been a great asset for the 49ers. He's been hugely successful here, but like I said, I do think that this is best for both parties. It's time to wipe the slate clean, start over, and revamp the offense. And no one's, unfortunately, the reality is that defenses aren't scared of Deebo anymore. They're just not worried about him in the sense of, being able to stop him. It feels like they have a plan for stopping Deebo when Kyle goes to kind of utilize him. And, it's kind of made the offense a bit stagnant feeling in a sense, just because, like I said, he doesn't feel like the threat that he once was, where everyone always had to know where Deebo was on the field. Every time Deebo went into motion, defenses started to freak out. And there was a point when that was exactly the reality. But the reality is now is that the defenses don't feel the same way. And so instead of continuing trying to force it, I do think it makes sense to move on and develop a new identity and allow Deebo to potentially go thrive somewhere else, and allow the 49ers to evolve their offense, get back to, maybe a more intricate and developed downfield passing game. Maybe just try to evolve in that way, where you're not relying on playing at or behind the line of scrimmage with players like Deebo Samuel. So it'll be fascinating to see what that looks like. But I think, based on how you hear George talk about it, based on everything that we've heard, and kind of how Deebo's acting, like I don't think there's any shot that Deebo returns to the 49ers. So, like I said, end of an era, but I think it's time. All good things have to come to an end, unfortunately. And like I said, Deebo's been a great player for the 49ers, but at a certain time, it's time to make changes, and I think that time is now. So the 49ers do have some weapons. I would imagine that they will either turn to free agency or the draft to continue to add to that room. I don't think, like you heard from George, he doesn't even know if, BA will be available week 1. So they're going to need some additional weapons, especially losing Deebo. So whether that's, like I said, free agency, whether they turn to the draft, some additional wide receivers would be welcomed. And, I think the offense needs to evolve a little bit. So let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you are welcomed to the change of kind of moving on from Deebo, or if you think the 49ers are going to struggle because they're going to move on from Deebo. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.